This case takes place in Arkansas, USA on the 30th of January 1985. Willie Mae Harris was a 37-year-old woman who lived in Bradley, Arkansas, a small city with a population at the time of around 600 people. Willie had two daughters, aged 14 and 5, and was married to a man named Clyde Harris. The two had been married for some time, but shortly after they tied the knot, Clyde changed. He became incredibly controlling and was often violent. On one occasion, Willie reported that he hit her so hard in the head that he burst her eardrum. Willie was often helpless in these situations. Clyde also had an array of guns. She was always fearful that one day she may be killed by her husband. One of Willie's daughters would later claim that she had seen firsthand how violent Clyde could be. She witnessed her father take a steel pipe and smash it down on Willie's hand as hard as he could, shattering the bones in her hand. With what she was experiencing and the danger she was in, Willie had no choice but to leave home. In 1984, she moved in with her mother. Willie brought her two children with her too. She was now safe from Clyde's aggression. However, Clyde was soon able to make contact with Willie. He told her that he was sorry for what he had done, claimed he would never do it again, and asked her to take him back. But Willie refused. After begging for her to return failed, he changed his tactics. Instead of begging, he began emotionally manipulating her to come back. Clyde told Willie that if she continued to refuse to come home, he would take his own life. Willie, now worried for her husband's safety, she decided to give him another chance, hoping that he would change his ways. Although, if you're familiar with these kinds of situations, it's extremely rare that someone actually makes attempts to change their ways, and Clyde was no exception. In January of 1985, Willie made the decision to leave her mother's house and travel back to her husband, bringing the kids with her too. Very shortly after moving back in with Clyde, Clyde went back to his old ways. Willie stated that when she came back, he acted insane. He would throw her around the house and would make constant threats, telling Willie every single day that he was going to kill her and get rid of her body. Fearful of her husband, Willie decided to take some action and acquired a pistol in case she was ever in a position to need to use one, and kept the weapon in her purse. On the 29th of January 1985, Willie and Clyde were watching television and the two stayed up until around 1:30 in the morning. Then, they went to bed. As the two got into bed, Clyde began to accuse Willie of giving him gonorrhea and became extremely aggressive. He then tried to force himself upon her, but Willie refused, and this angered Clyde further. He still continued and began calling her all kinds of derogatory names. Willie looked down to her purse on the floor right next to the bed and pulled out the pistol. Willie used the butt of the gun to smash Clyde in the face multiple times. She said she hit him so many times that she lost count. But then, the gun went off. Willie had accidentally shot Clyde. Their daughter, 14-year-old Sylvia, heard the sound of the gun and ran towards her parents' bedroom to see what had happened. She entered and saw her father laying face down on the bed, clinging on to life. The ambulance was called, but before they could arrive at the scene, Clyde passed away from the injury. The police brought Willie into the station and asked her exactly what had happened. Willie told the story I have just shared with you now. According to the police report, Willie admitted to shooting Clyde, but claimed that the gun accidentally went off. She said that her husband acted insane that night, and that every night he would go through some kind of transformation, where his facial features would change, and he would say and do strange things, and would threaten to kill her. The police began investigating the scene to see if her story matched up. I shall now read from the official court documents. According to investigators, there was evidence that the gun did not go off next to Clyde's skin like Willie had said. Willie said that she knelt over Clyde, who was laying down, hit him with the gun, and the gun fired. But her story was contradicted by Dr. Lee Beamer from the State Crime Lab. Dr. Lee Beamer claimed that the entrance wound was to the right of the breastbone and the bullet passed through several vital organs. The path of the bullet was straight and not deflected. It travelled downward from Clyde's right to his left. In order for the bullet to follow this path, the location of the gun would have had to have been above and in front of Clyde and slightly to his right. Also, there was evidence that the gun would not accidentally discharge. A firearms expert from the State Crime Lab testified that jarring would not cause the weapon to shoot. He hit the gun with a mallet numerous times, and the weapon did not go off. Investigators also examined the room of Clyde and Willie. They concluded that there was no sign of violence in the bedroom, like Willie had claimed. Willie had also stated that she hit Clyde with the butt of the gun a number of times, although, according to investigators, there were no bruises or abrasions on Clyde's body or face. From these findings, Willie was charged with the murder of Clyde. Willie maintained that the shooting was accidental and always has. The prosecutors offered her a deal. If she pled guilty to first-degree murder, she would only serve 20 years in prison. But if she didn't accept this deal, there was a chance she would serve life in prison. Despite the prospect of living life behind bars, Willie rejected this plea, and instead she maintained that she was innocent. The trial would begin in November of 1985. The prosecution team showed evidence that Willie intentionally pulled the trigger at point-blank range and described her as nothing but a cold-blooded murderer. They also highlighted a number of inconsistencies in her statements to the police. For example, right after the killing, she claimed that they had both talked and decided to get back together after breaking up. However, at the trial, she stated that she only went back to Clyde because he threatened to take his own life, and that she was worried for his safety. The prosecution team highlighted this as highly suspicious and stated that she bought the gun and went back to her husband to kill him in cold blood. In response to these claims, Willie stated, "Every night, Clyde would tell me, 'I'm going to kill you and get rid of your body.' I didn't buy the gun to kill him. I put it there because Clyde frightened me." She also highlighted the constant attacks that she suffered at the hands of Clyde, and the injuries that she had sustained over the years. Although, when asked to present evidence of these attacks, her defense lawyer was unable to get their hands on any medical records that could have proven the injuries. Willie had also claimed that multiple people had witnessed his violence, but these people never testified under oath. Although these people were willing to give evidence, but for some reason they just weren't allowed to. Willie's daughter Sylvia was also unable to give evidence during the trial, as Willie's lawyer claimed that she was too young to testify, something that Willie fought against. As I said earlier, Sylvia had witnessed Clyde break Willie's hand with a steel pipe. Willie was the only person allowed to give evidence for herself. After a one-day-long trial, Willie was found guilty of the murder of Clyde. She was sentenced to 140 years in prison. A prison interview was conducted, and Willie told the reporter, "It was shocking that anyone would even consider I would premeditate the killing of my husband, when in fact, I was the one who was always trying to hold the family together. I deeply regret what happened, especially depriving my children of both parents." For years, Willie appealed her sentence, but she had no luck. Whilst incarcerated, she taught many inmates how to read, but later into her sentence, she lost vision in both of her eyes, and now Willie is fully blind. However, on the 5th of June 2020, Willie was released from prison at the age of 72. She served 35 years of the 140-year sentence. In the appeals, she was also allowed to include evidence that she wasn't able to present in court, including the medical reports that her lawyer was apparently unable to get their hands on. Willie was greeted by her daughters and other family members upon her release, and will be on parole for 35 years until the age of 107. After being released, Willie said that she is incredibly grateful for the opportunity to be free again. Willie's clemency attorney stated, She has seriously paid for her crime. She has tremendous remorse for what she did, for what she caused to happen. Every time Clyde comes up in conversation, she tears up. She would tell you today that she loves him, and she never stopped loving him.